Well, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It seems a few weeks ago I was saying to those of us who were at services, I haven't seen this many people in a long time. And it seems like it's only been one more set of Shabbatot for me to say there's even more. So, wow, if you're with us online, I can only imagine how many people are here. It really feels amazing because there are some people here who I haven't seen in a long time, or maybe at all. Please forgive me if I don't know everybody's names, but we're going to have a discussion now. So this week's Parsha is Parashat Vayeshev, which begins the story of Joseph. And on top of all that, it's going to be Hanukkah tomorrow night. But what do these two narratives have in common? In both narratives, the Israelites felt that their way of life was being threatened. And in both narratives, the party that seemed to threaten them was expelled from the land. In Parashat Vayeshev, the threat was Joseph. He had a dream of his brothers bowing to him. His brothers felt threatened. And they asked him, Hamaloch timloch aleinu, do you mean to rule over us? And so they sold him, they kicked him out of the country, sent him as a slave to Egypt. In the Hanukkah story, the threat was the Seleucids, commonly known as the Greeks. The story says the Maccabees fought a war because the Hellenistic or Greek culture was threatening their Jewish way of life. They expelled the Greeks or the Seleucids from the temple. In both cases, however, the people that they kicked out were actually some of their own. Not everybody knows that in the war with the Maccabees, they were fighting largely against their own people, a civil war of sorts, in addition to a fight against the Greeks. And so, now I want to ask you, as Jews living in a country where we are very much a minority, what non-Jewish practices have Jews picked up over the years by living in America? Now, I don't want to comment yet or what we should do about these things. For now, we're just making a list. So what are some non-Jewish practices that Jews observe because we live in America? Josh. Chinese food on Christmas. That's a great one, Josh. What else? That's a good one. Great way to start. Yeah, Troy. Christmas tree or Hanukkah book. Definitely. Esther. Thanksgiving is not Jewish, at least the way that it is today. You could say maybe it was inspired by Judaism, but yeah, it's not Jewish. Good, Esther. Phil. Decorations and lights were not part of Hanukkah, but they are now. Thank you, Phil. Maybe one more? Doesn't have to be about the Hanukkah or holiday season, by the way. Yeah, Phil? Giving gifts to people certainly was not always a Hanukkah thing. Thank you, Phil. All right, one more. Yeah, Andrea. Halloween was a big one. I was hoping someone would say that. Thank you, Andrea. So now we have our list. Now I want to ask you, do these practices make us less Jewish? Now, I don't actually want you to answer the way that you actually believe. I want you to imagine someone who disagrees with you. I want you to answer how they answer, and I want you to give a good reason for why they would say it. Phil. This is just what happens when there's a vast population. This is how you assimilate, and it's okay. That's what Phil is saying. Thank you, Phil. Andrea. Yeah, when you have people in your life who do these things, who put up, I think you said it was Christmas stuff, that is part of the season for many people. Yes. Yeah, Myra. A lot of it is the children. The children these days, if they don't go to a Jewish school, or even if they do, will have friends that are not Jewish, and they will be exposed to these things. And it's very hard to tell them you can't go celebrate with your friends what they're celebrating. Thank you, Myra. Josh, and then Troy.
Came on and putting up a Christmas tree. Wasn't important. It was putting up.
Well, it's the story of Theodore Herzl putting up a Christmas tree. Certainly, nobody would suspect Theodore Herzl of being non-Jewish. So you could say that if he did it, maybe we can too, perhaps. Thank you, Josh. Troy, last one.
Have to have like.
Thank you, Troy. So yeah, it's okay, perhaps, to enjoy some of these secular or non-Jewish practices, but you have to have a certain pride and knowledge of your own customs, perhaps. So that was the question that I also wanted to ask. Oh, Andrea, sure, last one. Mm. Thank you, Andrea. Yeah, the Jews have so many holidays all year round, so many opportunities as Jewish educators for us to teach about Judaism. Sure, and then I'm afraid we do have to wrap it up, but sure.
We don't celebrate Christmas.
Mm. Yes, it is. There are some people who are so proud of being Jewish that they will tell everybody that these other ways are not for them, perhaps. But this is some. Yeah, Lois. We send Christmas cards sometimes, and that's okay. So on Hanukkah,
I
yeah,
also have a
sure.
comment. I love when my Christian neighbors invite me to a tree trimming, and I go and I bring an ornament and help them celebrate their holiday. I get a little concerned because a lot of Jews talk about when it comes to taking on Native American customs that we're doing cultural appropriation that's not appropriate, and that when we take on other cultures, we need to be careful of cultural misappropriation. And I wonder sometimes when we rush to take on Christian customs, to what degree we're doing cultural misappropriation and what degree we're participating in somebody else's and sharing in their culture and lives. And I think we don't always think about when we do it, we are always calling out somebody else when they do it.
Thank you, Rabbi. So when we practice these other non-Jewish customs, perhaps out of love, out of respect, if we don't know these cultures, perhaps we're not doing them justice. Perhaps we are actually misappropriating them. Certainly something to think about. So on Hanukkah, The story of Hanukkah, it talks about the threat of assimilation. The Maccabees were not willing to tolerate what seemed to be the inability to be Jewish. The question is, what is the line that you draw where assimilation changes from something loving to something that is a threat to your identity? And that is a question that all of us have to ask ourselves. There is no correct answer. It's probably different for everybody. I, for one, love many things about non-Jewish customs. I love to go caroling. I love to sing those songs. But in an age where anti-Semitism is all too real, I want us to ask ourselves this Hanukkah, where do we draw the line, and how do we allow ourselves to remain proudly Jewish and honor that, while also honoring the many wonderful customs of the people living around us? Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.